So thank you, everyone, and I'm delighted to welcome our keynote speaker, Congresswoman Jayapal. We are so delighted to have her here and to hear from her about the challenges and opportunities with India. And as somebody who clearly intersects in many ways on this topic. But I'm not going to be doing a formal introduction because she's so important that I'm going to be introducing another important person to introduce her. So now I would like to introduce Shasti Conrad. She's a woman of many firsts. She's the first woman of color and the youngest chair of the Washington State Democrats. She's also the first South Asian woman to lead a state party in the entire country. While I can spend another 10 minutes just talking about her accomplishments, what I would say is that the best one is that she is a graduate of our university, Seattle University. So, Ms. Conrad, please come to the stage. Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be back here at my alma mater. I am such a proud Red Hawk, and it's so great to be back for such an exciting and meaningful reason as well. I just was soaking up the energy of this space. It brought back memories as I walked down the stairs, and I saw the sign for the Fall Involvement Fair. And it's that time of year, and it took me right back to my Seattle U days, and I'm so proud to be here. And then to come into this space and hear all of you buzzing with excitement about being able to be together, to be brought together, to talk about the relationship between Seattle, Washington State, and India. And so it's just such an honor. I want to thank Seattle University for convening such an important conference and inviting me to speak and introduce my hero, Representative Pramila Jayapal, who I just love so much and is such a true leader for all of us here in Seattle and across this nation, particularly on progressive policy and human rights. And as you all know, she is the first Indian American woman elected to the U.S. House of Representatives ever. So that is a big, big deal. Talk about first in history making. As Satal said, I was a 2007 Seattle University graduate, and I also received the 2018 Distinguished Young Alumni Award from Seattle University, which I'm still so incredibly proud of. And I now serve as the chair of the Washington State Democrats. Yes, and the first South Asian woman, as you heard, to lead for either party in the entire country, and the first AAPI state party chair for the Democratic Party in the contiguous 48 states. And yes. I still can't believe that in 2023 we have these firsts, but I do think it's important that we sort of show that we can push down these doors and welcome other people in, which is what Representative Jayapal has done every step of her career. She has made sure that folks like myself are able to come in and continue to build on the legacy that she is creating every single day. Before my first foray into politics, once I came home after working in the Obama administration during the first term, I actually decided to run for the state Senate seat that Pramila vacated when she won her first election to Congress in 2016. I don't know for some of you, but 2016 was a little bit of a dark period for some of us, many of us, and the one big bright spot was Representative Jayapal winning her seat, and we were so thrilled, and I really have just looked up to her to make sure that we were organizing every single day, especially as I moved into my role as the chair of King County Democrats for the last 4 years before I moved into the state party. And she really has been that model for making sure that all of us are in these conversations, that we are standing up for human rights, that we are standing up for the most marginalized in our communities, and that we are really doing the work to make sure that we are making this world a little bit better. And so I just could not miss the opportunity to celebrate her and celebrate Seattle University and for being here for such a momentous occasion. And I truly want to lift up all of the visionaries who have been working to bring this partnership between Seattle University and India to fruition over many years. In preparing for today, I actually went back and I looked at an email from Vice President Jim Hembry in 2017, inviting me to a conversation just to start to think about what something like this could be. And for the fact that we are here today celebrating the opening of the RoundGlass Center, it's so exciting and so incredible. And it's a true testament to Seattle University's eye towards innovation and collaboration. And I want to give a big shout out to our president, Pramila, for really leading in innovation and making sure that Seattle U not only remains a beacon of hope for our state and for this country, but is pushing the edges to make sure that our students and that this community are leading both here locally and internationally. So thank you for your leadership and your vision. A huge congratulations to Seattle Professor Kulkarni for being here and doing this work and bringing this to fruition. Thank you for everything, and I'm so excited to see what you're going to do with this center. And as you all know, the conference timing could not have come any sooner because strengthening and growing the relationships that our region and India have with each other has never been more important. Our state has been leading the way in deepening our economic ties with India, and Representative Jayapal has been at the forefront of America's complex, nuanced, and important relationship with the world's two largest democracies. As chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, her powerful role in Congress has allowed her to champion the human rights of every person, both at home in the United States and in India. She has proven herself dedicated to protecting India's open democracy, one with whom she has advocated for continued American dialogue and dissent with. Right now, in a time when anti-Asian hate is still at an all-time high, and far-right politicians are embracing movements that display hostility to anyone who looks like us, running towards nationalism and protectionism, Indian Americans are standing up and fighting back and fighting for a more perfect union as a diaspora in the United States and as a community in India. Representative Pramila Jayapal is a champion of that vision for Indian Americans and everyone in our two great nations, and a champion for connecting this incredible city to India. I am so proud to welcome your keynote speaker, the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the very first Indian American woman in Congress, and my friend and inspiration, Representative Pramila Jayapal.
Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Shasti Conrad. Just so proud to watch her in all of the roles that she's had in really promoting engagement and democracy. And now, as the chair of the Washington State Democratic Party, we couldn't be more happy, and a Seattle U grad. So I think you've shown your worth right there, just in that one person. Thank you so much, Shasti. And thank you to Seattle University for organizing this. Thank you to President Pramila for cornering me at a Kraken game and immediately asking me, and I immediately said, yes, I want to speak. This is such an important venture, and so here I am. Thank you for that. Seathal, thank you for your leadership, and really looking forward to working with you on the RoundGlass India Center. I felt so much joy walking into this building and seeing so many old friends, many new friends I'm sure that we're going to have, but this opportunity to really center a dialogue about the India-US relationship, and specifically the opportunities and the challenges of this region, which I am so proud to represent, is just phenomenal. This exciting new venture has enormous potential, and it builds on an already strong foundation of engagement between our city and India. Just look at the distinguished list of speakers from our state today. Indian Americans serving at the highest level of politics, business, entrepreneurship, social justice, academia, and law. It is truly remarkable. And when you think about the impact of Indian Americans on every specter of American life, you can see it, including in key states where Indian Americans made the margin of victory in the vote to deliver us Democrats to the House, the Senate, and the White House. In fact, one very important acknowledgement of the special relationship between our region and India is that we will finally be getting our own Indian consulate in Seattle. I know so many of you have been working on this for years, and in fact, I raised this very topic and the importance of this to Prime Minister Modi when I had the honor of accompanying Speaker Nancy Pelosi to India in 2018 on an official congressional delegation, very proudly as the first Indian American woman elected to Congress. And I've continued to push for this behind the scenes with the White House and with the Indian ambassador. And it is finally happening. So, to our Seattle consulate. Now, I actually just returned a few days ago from visiting my parents in India, a perfect precursor to this conference, as it reminded me of the power and the potential of our two countries' collaboration and of my own personal connection to India. Some of you know my story. I was born in India. I grew up in India, Indonesia, and Singapore before coming to the United States by myself at the age of 16 for college, because my parents believed that this was the country where I could get the best education and have the brightest future. My parents had just $5,000 in their bank account when they sent me here. So they took all of their savings, their meager savings, and they made the ultimate sacrifice of sending their child across the ocean to live on another continent. And in fact, we have never lived on the same continent since I was 16. Now, my father wanted me to be one of three professions. I'm sure everybody in this room knows what they were. Go ahead and tell me, what are they? Doctor, lawyer, engineer. There you go. And you can imagine his horror when, as a sophomore at Georgetown University, I called him. I got one phone call home a year, and I called him from the dorm payphone. This was pre-Skype, just to date myself, and told him that I was going to be an English literature major instead of an economics major. And then I had to hold the phone away from my ear as he screamed at me and said, "I didn't send you to the United States to learn how to speak English. You already know how to speak English." And so I made it up to him by going on to work in investment banking, getting my master's in business, and then working in the private and the public sectors on health, including for PATH, a wonderful international health nonprofit organization right here in Seattle that took me into the world of public health collaborations across our borders, including with India. And that led me to a 2-year fellowship living in small towns and villages across India, inspired by village women in India who were saving forests and building resilient communities. That time was transformational for me. And that time in India in particular was transformational for me, and it led me into a 2-decade career of human and civil rights work, founding our state's largest immigrant rights organization, One America, before ultimately becoming the first South Asian American woman to serve in the House. Today, my own lived experience, spending 17 years navigating the complex American immigration system before finally becoming a US citizen, and my work on immigrant rights for decades, has culminated in my having the incredible opportunity to serve as the ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee on the House Judiciary Committee, soon to be chair when we take back the House in the next term. And I mention this because immigration is absolutely critical to the relationship between our two countries. We cannot build the partnership that we need to build without a fair and humane immigration system that allows us the opportunities to bring incredible talent through work visa reforms to ensure that we have a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, including dreamers. We have many South Asian American, Indian American dreamers now, as well as to preserve and strengthen the family-based immigration system, which actually many people don't know, but that is the primary way that most of our Indian Americans were able to come and stay here. Perhaps they came in through the family-based system, but then of course, they're not just family members. They put their skills to work in so many different ways. So this is a top priority for Democrats and for President Biden when we are able to have all three chambers in our control again. The opportunities for us to build bridges of inspiration and innovation and understanding between the US and Seattle are absolutely everywhere. In technology, of course, where our companies, big and small, are already sharing the latest that can be done. And on my recent trip to India, I was just amazed to see that even the vegetable wallas, the carts that are on the street with greens have GPay on them. You can pay for your cart vegetables with GPay. It was quite stunning to me. I also visited my home state of Kerala, where we landed at Cochin International Airport, the first airport in the world to be 100% powered by renewable energy. And I was in Bangalore, the home of the Indian Space Research Organization, which after decades of work by brilliant scientists and researchers led the remarkable recent accomplishment of being one of only 4 countries in the world to ever land on the moon and the first to land on the south pole of the moon. Just 2 days ago, India launched Aditya L1, its first spacecraft dedicated to studying the sun so that we can understand the solar patterns that are affecting our climate and our world. This new India Center, along with the existing work of the South Asia Center at the University of Washington Jackson School, will continue to build our understanding of our 2 countries and the lessons that we each have to learn from each other as the world's largest democracy and the world's oldest democracy. Just imagine that every single day, India adds a city the size of London to its urban population. It brings a whole new perspective to the challenges and the opportunities. And that sheer size, of course, means phenomenal business opportunity, but also an even greater responsibility to ensure that a rising economic tide lifts all boats. Not just the yachts, but also the small fishing boats that ply the backwaters of India's many rivers and oceans. Here in the United States, as one of the world's richest countries, we also have a very unique responsibility to reverse the stunning trend of wealth and income inequality, to address the crisis of 130 million poor and low-wealth individuals in the richest country in the world. Both of our countries recognize that the very challenges we face also offer us the potential for building more equitable and democratic societies. And that must be at the heart of all of our joint endeavors. Because without that, we will not have the foundation to counter the hate and divisiveness that comes from extreme inequality and that foments the politics of resentment and intolerance, which we have seen right here in this country, that can also lead to violence. So when I think about some areas that I'm particularly excited about, and there are so many, but I know we have a Q&A, so I don't want to go through all of them. I'll just mention a couple. Climate change is an area, I think, for incredible collaboration. The Pacific Northwest has been a leader on the transition to a green, clean energy future, and we know that building industrial and manufacturing bases both in India and in the United States is a huge opportunity to not only foster more diverse sources of renewable technologies, but also to create good, high-wage jobs. It's also true in public health, which is obviously an area I spent a long time in, where Seattle has been a leader on public health. If the pandemic showed us anything, it is that we must build the supply chain to ensure vaccine production and sharing of intellectual property for public health benefit in key hubs around the world. It can't just be centered in countries in Europe and the United States. It does not make it to the places that we need, and we have seen how vaccines transcend borders. They travel across borders. Pandemics are not limited to one country. So we need to make sure that we don't limit survival in a pandemic to only those in richest countries. Both of our countries, as new and old democracies, also face the challenge of tending to and to preserving that democracy. That is an everyday task. It is not something we can ever take for granted. I have split my life as a citizen first for 35 years of India, the world's largest democracy, and now as the proud congressional representative of the world's oldest democracy for 23 years, the United States. Our 2 countries share in our constitutions the founding values of democracy, of freedom of religion, of freedom of speech, of freedom of the press, of human rights, values that need to be central underpinnings in all of our collaborations. All our other ventures will stumble and fall if we do not preserve our ability as democracies to ensure these fundamental freedoms. And as difficult as it is, and as much as we might want to shy away from this topic, we cannot. It is precisely because we love our countries that we must also critique them. This is not about preaching from a high pulpit to the other, but rather about recognizing the challenges from within and calling for transparency and accountability, including in our bilateral relationship through engagement, not through isolation, but through engagement. And that is why when I was invited to attend a number of events with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during a state visit to the United States, I accepted as many as possible to both celebrate our possibilities and our communities and also to call out our challenges. I raised my concerns documented in the 2023 U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, which has raised concerns about worsening religious freedoms in India, including legislation that directly targets religious minorities. I raised those concerns directly to the Prime Minister. I also co-led with Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland a letter to our president, President Biden, signed by 67 members of the U.S. House and 18 United States senators, asking the president to raise these issues as foundational to our ongoing relationship with India. From my own personal conversations with President Biden, I'm very proud to call him a friend and to say we have many conversations about democracy, about justice, about equality. I know that the president did raise these concerns and will continue to underscore the importance of these foundational values to any collaborative relationship. We in the United States understand that preserving democracy is a task for us right here at home. We don't speak from glass houses. We call out these issues right here at home. And as someone who was trapped in the Capitol on January 6th during the insurrection and thought that I would die, I am working every day to call out our own failings right here in the United States because I love this country. And our task is to create more perfect unions here and around the world. So let me end with this. One of the most inspiring moments on my recent trip to India was at a celebration of the 35th anniversary of the International Music and Arts Society, of the role that arts and culture plays in our world, and of the creativity and the innovation that can be fostered through the arts and through cultural sharing in every field of society, and the bridges of understanding that can be built through arts and culture. The evening included, the highlight of the evening actually, was a talk by the renowned classical Indian Bharatanatyam dancer, Malavika Sarakai. Some of you may know her or have seen her. She has been celebrated with India's highest arts award, the Padma Shri, and she's going to be performing at the Kennedy Center in November, a new solo work that she created during COVID on the importance of interconnectedness. And I had the opportunity to really get to know her after her talk, and I'm working to bring her here. I'm hoping to have her perform at Benaroya. So anybody who wants to work with me on that, please let me know. Her talk was ostensibly about dance, but really it was about inspiration. It was about how to preserve the best of tradition and culture while also still innovating and recognizing that tradition cannot just hold as it was. It needs to adapt to the present. While a master of classical Indian dance, Malavika has also been, in the words of the Washington Post, an iconoclast, bringing contemporary themes and motifs into her work to shift the perceptions of gender in dance and to highlight the cycle of tradition, transition, and transformation. And I love thinking about that cycle and everything that it implies for every sector of our world. She spoke to how to preserve tradition, respect tradition, while also transforming stereotypes, about how to utilize the arts and support creativity and innovation in every field, and how to understand that it is ultimately connection with each other and not isolation that fosters all political change and positive change. These are great lessons for us all as we develop our collaborations. And I see this center as being central to that idea of those connections that we will develop in every sector. And we shouldn't exclude arts and culture either, because I think they teach us a lot about law and business and justice. Our region is so well positioned to push forward and lead in every arena, whether that is promoting global democracy, trade, or leading technological advances. We are a place of entrepreneurship. We are also a place of leading policy, social justice, a fair minimum wage, to environmental justice, of international health and international trade, of arts and culture innovation and exchange at multiple universities, and groundbreaking research and development. So I am deeply, deeply grateful to the RoundGlass India Center for all of the new learnings and the opportunities that I know will transpire on this platform that you provide for leading minds from both of our countries to come together, to learn, and to build a brighter future together. But perhaps most importantly, as an Indian American member of Congress, so deeply connected to both countries, so much a part of both countries in who I am and what I've done in my life, I am so optimistic about our shared futures together. And most of all, I'm optimistic about our people, about the people of the two countries. And I know that this work would simply not be possible without the resources, the talent, the imagination, and the commitment that each of you have put in already and will continue to bring. So thank you so much for having me, and here's to a brighter future for both India and Seattle. Questions? And I believe we're taking a few questions.
And I will ask you to come to the microphone just so we can get as many people through as we can, as we do anticipate a number of questions.
And maybe people go ahead and line up if you have questions, just so we can get as many in as possible.
The question is about immigration.
Yes.
Someone said that we have the immigration program that a lot of people want, which is fear and anxiety for a lot of people. Canada has a very aggressive program to make sure the tech workers we want here, especially when they get finished with their master's or PhD, go across the border and they help their spouses. So is there any hope at all that Congress, it's not really a president's job, it is Congress' job to do immigration, can really get our arms around it and find even some simple ways to do that, which would also include during the summers, we have students here at Seattle University who would like to work here in the summer or intern, and they cannot do so.
Yeah.
We used to have a program with the United Kingdom where we could go back and forth, college students could go back and forth in the summer and have jobs.
Yeah.
So they're kind of bundled together with immigration. Is there any hope at all, or how can we make hope happen
Yes,
for the immigration
that is
program?
the question. This is the issue I've spent 20 years working on, and we have some incredible immigration experts here in the audience as well that I've worked with over the years. Look, the challenge is that it was 2013 when the United States Senate passed a bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform bill. Because we haven't had comprehensive immigration reform in this country for decades, but that passed with 68 bipartisan votes. It's hard to imagine such a thing today. And John Boehner was the Speaker of the House at the time, and he refused to bring it up because the Republicans didn't want to vote for an immigration bill because they would, I'm just going to say this, I think they would rather have the issue out there as something that can divide us. But it is hurting us economically, it is hurting us culturally, it is hurting us in any possible way. And we are losing people to other countries like Canada. And I just looked at some statistics of how many workers are going to Canada instead of coming to the United States. And so it is comprehensive reform that we need. We are not going to get it until we get rid of the filibuster in the Senate and until we have Democrats back in control. So that's really what we need to do. And for those of you who haven't followed the filibuster, because I didn't follow the filibuster, and I was pretty educated politically until I got to Congress, we give the power to determine not just what bill gets voted on, but whether a bill even gets discussed, to 40 senators who represent 11% of the country's population. We will never get 60 senators to pass an immigration reform bill. We can't even get 60 senators to pass H-1B reforms, which are, fairly bipartisan. We passed several bipartisan bills in the last Congress. We passed an H-1B reforms program. We passed an ag workers program with bipartisan support, not a lot, but a little bit. And they stalled in the Senate. because the Senate can't bring anything up unless they get 60 senators. So it is really important, and this connects back to government structures, institutional structures that prevent progress from happening. It is really important that we get rid of the filibuster so that we can pass real immigration reforms. It is also important that we put people in office who are not going to use immigrants as political footballs, because that's what's been happening. And the reality is, this country would collapse without the contributions, the talent, the perseverance, the hard work, the culture, the contributions of immigrants from all over the world. So we will continue to work on it. We tried to get a few small things through, but the Judiciary Committee and the Immigration Subcommittee, which I am now a ranking member on because we're not in the majority, has only focused on the southern border and the threats at the southern border. And any other attempts that we've made have just been completely shut down. So we'll keep working at it, but I think we're probably realistically looking at 2027 when we, 2024 when we hopefully take back the House and the Senate and keep the White House. And then maybe we have a real shot of having 50 senators who are willing to get rid of the filibuster, or at least carve out the filibuster for critical civil and human rights bills.
Thank you so much for your commitment for human rights. My name is Ahmad Alalabed, and I'm a Commissioner for Refugee and Immigrant Commission of City of Seattle, and a proud community servant for refugees and immigrants. So Martin Luther King said when he was in India, he says, since being in India, I'm more convinced than ever before that the method of nonviolence resistance is the most potent weapon available to oppressed people in their struggle for justice and human dignity. So me coming from Afghanistan 5 years ago, and now seeing what is going on, and as you said, United States is one of the oldest democracy in the world, and India is the biggest democracy in the world. But personally noticing and seeing, why is there not more cooperation with India in terms of like foreign relationship, and especially like the struggles of refugees and immigrants, and also for people who are escaping out of fear from terrorism in Afghanistan, like the Taliban and ISIS and all, etc. So why there's not more of like a relationship to help these people safely escape Afghanistan, or people who are struggling in the struggle? So I hope you understood my question.
I think so, and thank you so much for speaking up and you know, for articulating the urgency of the United States continuing to focus on the ability to bring justice and democracy around the world. I think that part of, you know, there hasn't always been a close relationship between the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy, and I think this is part of what we have seen starting, actually I would say going back to President Obama, who did go to India and who began some of that work. And I think President Biden is deeply committed to this as well for a number of political and, you know, cultural reasons. In terms of the geopolitical sphere, that will offer us more opportunities, I think, to do what you're saying. And obviously, we have a lot of refugees and immigrants who enter the United States, including from South Asia, Afghanistan, as well as other places. And it will be an opportunity for us, I think, to continue to do work. I would just say my first visit to India was with Speaker Pelosi to actually talk about human rights for the Tibetans. And India has been incredibly wonderful to the Tibetans. We met with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I think that there are many ways in which we can build that relationship, and I hope we do.
Thank you so much.
And unfortunately, we are at time, so that will be our last question.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate being here.
Thank you to Congresswoman Jayapal for her inspiring remarks, and count me along with Shashti and her fan club as well. We are so honored to have her here and to bless our new center. Thank you so much.